What do you mean my account is overdrawn? That's impossible, I said, staring at my phone with carefully crafted surprise as Nathan's so-called sister Diana ranted about the rent money he'd promised her. My smartwatch vibrated with another bank alert, the fifth one in the last hour. He did what? I kept my voice perfectly steady, my face a mask of confusion, letting her believe I was just learning about my husband's betrayal for the first time. The modern living room of my Boston suburban home felt suddenly colder as I paced across the hardwood floors, watching the morning sunlight filter through the large windows. Diana's panicked voice continued through the speaker, but I was already mentally reviewing the contents of the secure folder hidden in my home office labeled insurance policy. My name is Audrey Bennett, and my husband, Nathan, just became one of the biggest stakes in the chess game of my life, but not in the way he thinks. That Sunday morning when I woke up to an empty bed and checked my phone to find his cold farewell text felt like a punch to the gut, even though I'd been anticipating it for weeks. I loved you once, but you've always put your work first. I can't do this anymore. Goodbye. Such calculated cruelty, carefully worded to make me feel guilty while he robbed me blind. I'm so sorry, Diana, I said into the phone, my free hand already pulling up the bank app to document the latest attempted withdrawal. I had no idea he was planning this. I'm just as shocked as you are. The tremor I added to my voice was a nice touch, I thought. I'm a corporate accountant in Boston, and I've spent the last decade tracking financial inconsistencies for some of the largest companies on the East Coast. So when my own husband started showing signs of planning his great escape 6 months ago, he couldn't have chosen a worse target. The bitter irony almost made me smile despite everything. The first red flag appeared in February when Nathan casually asked about our retirement accounts over dinner, showing sudden interest in our finances after years of letting me handle everything. Just thinking about our future, he'd said with that winning smile that once made my heart flutter. Within days came the hushed phone calls that ended abruptly when I entered the room, the unexplained business meetings that left his location tracker in places no business would be conducted, and the way he'd quickly switch tabs on his laptop whenever I walked by. Classic signs of someone planning to vanish. In my line of work, I'd documented these patterns countless times for other victims. What Nathan never realized was that every suspicious transaction, every hidden purchase, every attempt to quietly siphon our money into his secret accounts, I tracked meticulously. Each step he took to try to con me became another piece of evidence, carefully documented, time-stamped, and secured in multiple locations, digital copies sent to my lawyer, physical copies locked away, and backups shared with my colleague Gabriella. By the time he sent that calculatedly cruel goodbye text, thinking he'd executed the perfect escape, I had already protected our assets, flagged our joint accounts, and prepared for every possible scenario he might attempt. My dog Rufus, a rescue golden retriever who'd been my comfort through many long nights of evidence gathering, nudged my leg with his nose as if sensing my tension. I scratched behind his ears absently while watching another fraud alert pop up on my phone. So when the cascade of failed transaction notifications began flooding my phone that Monday morning, I couldn't suppress the small, satisfied smile that formed on my lips. Nathan believed he was 10 steps ahead, but he had no idea he was walking straight into a trap engineered by someone who specialized in catching people exactly like him. My phone continued buzzing with alerts, declined transactions, failed withdrawal attempts, frozen accounts, each notification a confirmation that my preparations had worked perfectly. Each one felt like the satisfying click of a lock falling into place. As I listened to Diana's impressively convincing performance of sisterly concern on the phone, he promised the money would be there today. My landlord is threatening eviction. I almost felt a twinge of admiration for their well-rehearsed con, almost. You might think I was heartbroken, discovering that my husband of 6 years had never truly loved me. But when you spend your career following the money trails people try to hide, you develop an eye for patterns. People believe they're clever when concealing their tracks, but financial transactions always leave evidence. And Nathan? He scattered breadcrumbs like a careless child in a forest. Diana, let me see what I can find out. I'll call you back, I said, ending the call and immediately texting Gabriella, it's happening. Phase 1 complete. Previous night home office. Instead, I created a war room of financial intelligence in the small spare bedroom I'd converted to a home office. Each night after Nathan went to sleep, I'd slip in quietly and pull up bank statements, track suspicious transactions, and methodically build my case file. Every time he thought he was covering his tracks with new accounts or cash withdrawals, he was actually creating a clearer trail of evidence. I installed a small, discreet camera in the office that caught him accessing my laptop 3 separate times when I was out. My personal detective work revealed a pattern of slow, calculated attempts to drain our joint accounts. I watched him testing boundaries, moving small amounts first, then gradually larger sums, all while thinking I remained completely oblivious. "You're working late again?" Nathan would ask, his voice dripping with performative concern as he leaned against the doorframe of our home office, designer watch gleaming on his wrist. "Is everything okay at the firm?" Just catching up on some financial reports, I'd reply with a tired smile, careful not to let my gaze linger too long on his face. I never mentioned that the reports I was analyzing included detailed spreadsheets of his own suspicious activities, meticulously documented and time-stamped. End of quarter always gets busy. Nathan would nod sympathetically, bringing me tea I never asked for. "Don't work too hard. You deserve a break." The irony of his fake concern made my skin crawl, but I'd smile gratefully and return to my work, tracking the man who was plotting to destroy me. The breaking point came 3 weeks ago on a rainy Tuesday evening. I was actually working late at the office, reviewing a legitimate client case, when Gabriela Rodriguez burst through the glass door of my office without knocking. The overhead fluorescent lights made her normally warm complexion look pale, and she clutched her tablet so tightly her knuckles had turned white. "Audrey, you need to see this right now," she said, her voice low and urgent. The normal humor in her eyes was replaced with something I rarely saw in my confident friend, genuine alarm. I was cross-referencing those suspicious transaction patterns for the Eastman Group audit when I found something. "It's about Nathan." My stomach tightened into a cold knot as she placed her tablet in front of me. There it was in black and white, Nathan Reed's name linked to a series of questionable transactions we were investigating professionally, not as a witness or victim, but as a person of interest. The same distinct patterns I'd been tracking in our personal accounts were appearing in his professional dealings. This wasn't just about leaving me, he was running from something much larger. "There's more," Gabriella whispered, taking a quick glance toward the door before swiping through additional documents. "He's been flagged in 3 other fraud investigations. Different states, different names, Nathan Murphy in Chicago, Nathan Brooks in Seattle, but the exact same methodology. He identifies successful women, preferably in finance, marries them, then vanishes with their assets." The last case was in Chicago just before he relocated to Boston. The victim was a nurse named Meredith Hayes. The rain pattered against the window as all the puzzle pieces suddenly locked into place. The practiced charm, the strategic secrecy, the calculated interest in our finances. The expensive wine he always ordered but barely drank. The golf clubs he bought but rarely used. It was all part of a carefully constructed persona. I wasn't his wife, I was his next target. And he had no idea that his latest mark specialized in detecting exactly the kind of financial fraud he was attempting to commit. "We need to document everything," I said, my professional calm taking over despite the personal betrayal crushing my chest. And we need to find this Meredith Hayes. That night I sat alone at our kitchen island until dawn, my laptop illuminating the darkness as I reviewed everything with new understanding. The loving husband act, the subtle manipulation, the way he gradually tried to separate me from my college friends and even my parents with subtle comments and scheduling conflicts. The pieces formed a perfect, terrible picture. I found myself laughing quietly into the stillness of our kitchen, not because anything was remotely funny, but because of the sheer irony. Of all the women in Boston he could have targeted, he'd chosen an accountant who specialized in detecting financial fraud. He'd picked absolutely the wrong woman to con. For the next 21 days, I executed my counterplan with surgical precision. Every morning I'd kiss Nathan goodbye as if nothing had changed. "Have a good day, honey," I'd say with a practiced smile, handing him the travel mug of coffee I'd prepared. Every evening I'd listen patiently to his elaborate lies about clients and investments, nodding at all the right moments, while secretly recording conversations and documenting every suspicious move. With Gabriella's help after hours, I quietly moved our savings to secure accounts, contacted Agent Harlow at the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit, and gathered comprehensive evidence that would not only protect me but help his previous victims. "You seem different lately," Nathan remarked one evening as we prepared dinner, his eyes studying my face with the intensity that once made me feel special but now felt predatory. "Is everything all right?" I carefully arranged my features into a mask of mild exhaustion, thinking about the trap I was meticulously constructing around him, about how his own arrogance would be his downfall. The satisfaction of knowing I was 10 steps ahead of him was almost overwhelming. "Just tired from this quarterly audit," I replied, chopping vegetables with precise movements. "You know how it gets this time of year." I offered a small, convincing yawn. He nodded sympathetically, rubbing my shoulders in a gesture that once brought comfort but now made my skin crawl. "My hard-working wife," he said with what sounded like pride but I now recognized as calculation, probably thinking I was earning more money for him to steal. If he'd been more observant, he might have noticed the determined glint in my eyes when he turned away, the one that said I knew exactly what he was planning and had prepared accordingly. Con artists like Nathan never imagine they'll be the ones getting conned. The fundamental flaw in people who make a living betraying others is they never expect to become the victim of their own game. The morning after Nathan disappeared, his plan began unfolding precisely as he'd anticipated. The first notification came from our bank's fraud department: unusual activity, multiple withdrawal attempts, credit cards approaching their limits. The second call was from Diana, his fake sister, hysterical about money he'd supposedly promised her. The third, and most interesting, was from a Chicago area code I didn't recognize. "Is this Audrey Bennett?" a woman's voice asked, tension evident in every syllable. "I'm trying to locate Nathan Reed. I have reason to believe he's your husband." Her husband. The words hit me like an electric shock, despite my preparations. "I'm sorry, who is this?" I asked, gripping my phone tighter as I sat down at my kitchen table, the morning sunlight creating patterns on the polished wood. "My name is Meredith Hayes," she explained, her voice carrying the unmistakable edge of someone who had been deeply wronged. "Nathan Reed, or Nathan Murphy as I knew him, is still legally my husband. He disappeared with my life savings 3 years ago. I've been tracking him ever since." A smile spread across my face despite the gravity of the situation. "Actually, here he went by Nathan Reed, and you're not going to believe this, Meredith, but I've been expecting your call." Relief flooded her voice as I continued, "I'd like to meet in person, if possible." 2 days later, we sat in a quiet corner of a cafe with security cameras I'd carefully selected, comparing notes over steaming cups of coffee, same charming smile in our wedding photos, same investment consultant story, same pattern of gradually draining accounts before disappearing. But this time there was one crucial difference in his pattern: me. "I've compiled enough evidence to bring him down permanently," I told her, showing her my meticulously organized digital files on my tablet. "But I need your help to catch him." Her eyes, which had carried so much pain when we first met, now showed a steely determination that matched my own. At that exact moment, my phone buzzed with a text from Nathan. "I'm sorry for leaving like that. Can we talk? Just one last time. I can explain everything." Perfect. He was following the exact pattern I'd identified in Meredith's case, reaching out after the initial disappearance, attempting to manipulate his way into one last opportunity to access any remaining funds. I showed the message to my lawyer, who was already preparing our counterattack with the FBI. "Let's spring the trap," she said, her eyes gleaming with professional satisfaction. Coffee shop meeting. I agreed to meet Nathan at a carefully selected coffee shop downtown, one with multiple security cameras and clear exits where Agent Harlow's team could position themselves discreetly. My friend Julia Chin sat at a distant table, pretending to work on her laptop while actually monitoring the situation. When I arrived, Nathan was already there, presenting the perfect picture of remorse. His normally immaculate hair was slightly disheveled, his eyes deliberately reddened, his designer clothes just rumpled enough to suggest distress without looking unkempt. He'd clearly practiced this performance. "Audrey, I'm so sorry," he began, reaching for my hand across the wooden table, his voice carrying the precise modulation of practiced contrition. "I've been dealing with some bad investment decisions. Several clients backed out unexpectedly. I panicked. I needed some time to think." I pulled my hand away with careful hesitation, playing my role perfectly, the hurt but potentially forgiving wife. "How much trouble are you in, Nathan?" I asked quietly. His eyes lit up for just a millisecond, a predator sensing prey, before returning to their practiced sadness. I caught that flash of calculation, storing it away as another piece of evidence of his true character. "About $200,000, he admitted with a perfectly timed sigh of shame. "But I have a solid plan to recover everything. I just need temporary access to our emergency fund to secure this new investment opportunity. It's guaranteed returns, Audrey. I can fix all of this." I pretended to consider his request, watching him squirm with barely concealed anticipation. The wireless microphone taped to my chest captured every word for Agent Harlow's team listening nearby. "The emergency fund," I repeated slowly. "You mean the one you attempted to empty yesterday morning? And again at 3 a.m. today?" His facade faltered momentarily, genuine surprise flickering across his features before he recovered. "That was a mistake," he backpedaled smoothly. "I wasn't thinking clearly. But if you help me now, I promise I'll..." "To what? To disappear again? Or to stick around long enough to drain my accounts like you did to Meredith in Chicago?" The color drained from Nathan's face, his carefully constructed mask crumbling completely. For the first time since I'd known him, Nathan Reed, or Murphy, or whatever his real name actually was, looked genuinely shocked, his mouth slightly open, eyes wide with alarm. "You, no," he whispered, his voice stripped of its usual confident charm. "The funny thing is," I continued, calmly sliding a tablet across the table and tapping the screen to display a comprehensive timeline of his activities, "if you'd done your research, you might have realized that trying to con an accountant who specializes in financial fraud wasn't your smartest career move." My voice remained steady, but I couldn't hide the slight satisfaction I felt watching his practiced confidence collapse. At that precise moment, 2 FBI agents in dark suits approached our table from different directions. I stood up, smoothing my blazer with deliberate calm. Oh, and Nathan? You might want to call a lawyer. A good one. You're going to need it. The look of utter disbelief on his face as Agent Harlow read him his rights was something I'd remember for a long time, the dawning realization that he wasn't the mastermind he believed himself to be. As the agents led Nathan toward the door, his shoulders slumped in defeat, my phone vibrated with an incoming call from Gabriella. Her timing was impeccable. "We've got him," she said, her voice brimming with triumph and barely contained excitement. "The team just finished analyzing those offshore accounts you flagged. Nathan isn't just running marriage cons, he's been operating a sophisticated Ponzi scheme targeting professional women. We're looking at fraud in the millions, Audrey. This is huge." Through the coffee shop's large front window, I watched as Nathan was placed in an unmarked federal vehicle, the handcuffs glinting in the sunlight. He looked diminished somehow, nothing like the confident, charismatic man who believed he'd outsmarted everyone around him. Julia approached from her observation table, giving me a supportive squeeze on the shoulder before taking the seat Nathan had just vacated. "How many victims are we talking about?" I asked Gabriella, my stomach tightening despite our victory. I already knew the answer wouldn't be pretty. 27 confirmed so far, spanning 6 states, 14 marriages or engagements, all to successful professional women, mostly in finance or healthcare, she detailed clinically. But here's the most disturbing part: he was planning something much bigger. We found business plans and incorporation documents for a new investment firm he was setting up. He was going to use your credentials, your reputation, and your client contacts to lure in high-net-worth individuals. The potential damage would have been in the tens of millions. I thought about all those evenings when he'd casually ask about my work, showing what I'd interpreted as supportive interest. The times he'd offer to proofread my presentations or suggest improvements to my client pitches. He wasn't being a supportive husband, he was gathering information, studying my professional methodology, planning to exploit my hard-earned reputation for his most ambitious scam yet. "The irony," I said, absently stirring my now cold coffee, "is that if he hadn't gotten so greedy, if he'd just stuck to his usual marriage and disappear routine, he might have slipped away again. But he just had to go bigger." "That's not even the best part," Gabriella continued, her voice rising with excitement. "Remember that exclusive country club membership he insisted was essential for networking last year? Turns out he was using it specifically to target Julia Chen. He was already laying the groundwork for his next disappearing act while you were still in the picture." Julia nodded grimly across from me, confirming Gabriella's words. I recalled all those Sunday golf games Nathan had suddenly become passionate about, the evening networking events he'd attend alone because I was too busy with work. While playing the role of devoted husband at home, he was already grooming his next victim. But what he hadn't realized was that Julia wasn't just any real estate investor, she was my friend since college, and she'd been working with me to document his every move for months. "Let me guess," I said, smiling at Julia while still on the phone with Gabriella. "Julia gave you access to all their private conversations, every email, every text, every accidental meeting at the club lounge." Complete with audio recordings, Gabriella confirmed with satisfaction. "He literally handed us a blueprint of his entire operation while trying to charm her. The guy practically wrote our federal case for us. Julia deserves an Academy Award for her performance." Julia gave a small, modest bow from across the table. "I just followed your lead. Besides, watching him try so hard while knowing what we knew, it was almost entertaining." I couldn't help but laugh, the tension of the past months finally releasing. Nathan had spent nearly a year meticulously planning his exit strategy, convinced he was the most intelligent person in every room. Meanwhile, every single person he thought he was manipulating had been working together, building an airtight case that would ensure he'd never victimize anyone again. "Have you heard anything about his sister, Diana?" I asked, remembering her frantic call that morning, the first domino in today's events. "That's another fascinating thread," Gabriella replied. "Turns out she's not his sister at all, she's his accomplice and occasional romantic partner. They've been running this scam together for years. She plays the desperate sister or cousin to create urgency around why he suddenly needs cash, right before he vanishes. She's being picked up by federal agents in New York right now." I sank back in my chair, taking it all in as Julia ordered fresh coffee for us both. The scope and sophistication of Nathan's deception were breathtaking, but equally striking was his fundamental blindness. He'd been so focused on maintaining his intricate web of lies that he never noticed the counterintelligence operation closing around him from all sides. "One more thing," Gabriella added, her voice dropping slightly. "We found his true identity through fingerprint matching. His real name isn't Nathan Reed or Murphy, it's Nathan Roberts, and he's been wanted for similar fraud schemes in Canada since 2015. I smiled, thinking about the exhaustive case files waiting back at the office. "Well, Nathan Roberts, welcome to the consequences of your actions." I was preparing to head back to meet with Agent Harlow when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You think you're clever, but you have no idea what's coming. Check your email now." Seconds later, my inbox pinged with a new message containing dozens of detailed surveillance photos. Me walking Rufus in the park, having lunch with my parents last weekend, working late at my office desk, even shots taken through my bedroom window. The message was clear: I was being watched. A surge of anger, not fear, rushed through me as I realized the extent of the invasion. I immediately forwarded everything to Gabriella, Julia, and my lawyer, then placed a call directly to Agent Harlow. "We've got another player in the game," I said without preamble. "Already tracking it," she replied, her professional tone unwavering. The photos were sent from an IP address we've been monitoring since this investigation began. Marcus Wilson, Nathan's former cellmate from a brief incarceration in Phoenix. He's been operating as Nathan's enforcement arm, surveilling and threatening victims who get too close to exposing their operation. I thought about Meredith Hayes, wondering if these intimidation tactics were why she'd waited so long to come forward with what she knew. "Where is Wilson now?" I asked Agent Harlow, a sense of urgency building. "That's the problem, we can't pinpoint his location, but he's probably..." Agent Harlow stopped mid-sentence, the sound of rapid typing in the background. "Hold on. We're detecting activity on one of Nathan's frozen accounts. Someone's trying to access it right now, from inside your house." My house? Where I'd left my laptop running our surveillance software. My stomach dropped as I immediately called Meredith, who was supposed to be waiting there for me. The phone rang 3 times before she answered. We have a situation," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Diana's here. She must have had a key or known how to pick the lock. She's trying to access Nathan's accounts from your computer." Diana, the fake sister who was supposedly being arrested in New York. My mind rapidly assessed the possibilities. Either the arrest had failed or... Meredith, get out of there immediately. Diana's not working alone. I was already moving toward my car, Julia following close behind. I heard a loud crash through the phone, followed by Meredith's sharp intake of breath. "Too late," she whispered. "Wilson's here too. He just came through the back door." My heart hammered in my chest, but my training kept my thoughts crystalline in their clarity. This desperate move was exactly the kind of last-ditch effort I'd anticipated and prepared for. "Meredith," I said calmly, "remember our contingency plan? It's time to activate Protocol 3. Through the phone, I heard Meredith's voice shift from fearful to controlled. "Hey Diana, before you and your partner do anything you'll regret, you might want to look at what's actually on this screen." I couldn't help but smile, knowing exactly what they were seeing. Every file, every account, every piece of evidence wasn't just stored locally on my laptop, it was being live-streamed to secure FBI servers. Plus, the entire house had been wired with surveillance cameras after I'd discovered Nathan's true identity, with agents positioned strategically in the neighborhood. "It's over," I heard Meredith say with remarkable composure. "Look outside." The unmistakable sound of police sirens filled the background, growing louder by the second as FBI agents converged on my property. Within minutes, both Diana and Wilson were in custody, and Meredith was safe. I arrived home to find Agent Harlow waiting for me in my driveway, the flashing lights of law enforcement vehicles illuminating the early evening sky. Yellow crime scene tape cordoned off my front yard, neighbors watching curiously from their porches. "Quite the elaborate chess game you orchestrated," she said with professional admiration. "You anticipated they'd make exactly this move." I surveyed my home, now an active crime scene with federal agents collecting evidence. People like Nathan, Diana, and Wilson always get desperate at the end. They're so accustomed to controlling every situation that they can't handle losing that control. I watched as the agents led a handcuffed Diana and Wilson to separate vehicles. I just needed to make them believe they had one final opportunity to win. Well, with this home invasion, the intimidation attempts, and the surveillance photos, we can add witness intimidation, conspiracy, and stalking charges to their already substantial list, Agent Harlow said, satisfaction evident in her typically stoic expression. "Your comprehensive trap worked flawlessly." Rufus barked from inside Agent Harlow's car where he'd been kept safe during the operation. I thought about Nathan sitting in his holding cell, likely still confident he could charm or negotiate his way out of trouble. He had no idea that his desperate final gambit had just provided exactly the additional evidence needed to ensure he'd never victimize another person. 2 months later, I sat in the federal courthouse, watching Nathan's carefully constructed world disintegrate completely. Gone was the charismatic smile and confident posture, replaced by a hollow-eyed look of utter defeat as the judge delivered his sentence. The designer suit had been replaced by standard-issue clothing, his once perfect hair now grown out and unkempt. "Nathan Roberts," the judge pronounced, her voice resonating through the hushed courtroom, "for multiple counts of wire fraud, identity theft, conspiracy to commit fraud, money laundering, and witness intimidation. This court sentences you to 25 years in federal prison, with no possibility of parole for 15 years. I caught his eye as U.S. Marshals led him away. For a brief moment, the carefully maintained facade crumbled completely, revealing the panic and rage beneath. The man who had texted me "I loved you once, but you always put your work first" now faced a future where love, freedom, and control, the things he'd manipulated to harm others, were permanently beyond his reach. Diana and Wilson didn't fare much better in their separate trials. Both eventually accepted plea deals to avoid maximum sentences, but they would still serve substantial prison time. As part of their agreements, they provided detailed evidence against Nathan's entire network, exposing operations that spanned 3 countries and involved dozens of accomplices. Meredith sat beside me during the sentencing, squeezing my hand in solidarity as Nathan's victims, our unexpected sisterhood of survivors, stood one by one to deliver their impact statements. Each woman shared a similar story of deception and betrayal, but each ended with the same powerful message of reclamation. We hadn't just received legal justice, we had reclaimed our power, our dignity, and our trust in our own judgment. The spring sunshine streamed through the courthouse windows, symbolizing the new beginning that had emerged from winter's darkness. After the proceedings concluded, Agent Harlow approached me with an envelope in hand. The Bureau could use someone with your specific skill set and personal experience with financial fraud cases. Have you ever considered consulting for us? We have a new task force focused exclusively on romance and marriage fraud schemes. I thought about all the other Nathans out there, all the sophisticated scammers who believed they were too clever to be caught. The opportunity to help prevent others from experiencing what I and so many women had endured felt like the perfect next chapter. You know what? I think I'd like that very much, I replied, accepting the envelope containing the formal offer. As I walked out of the courthouse into the bright Boston spring sunshine, Meredith and Julia flanking me on either side, I felt lighter than I had in years. Nathan had believed he was destroying me, but he'd only catalyzed my transformation into someone stronger and more determined. The weight of betrayal had been replaced by purpose. Now I had a new mission, ensuring Nathan Roberts would be the last con man to underestimate a woman with financial expertise and a passion for justice. The thought made me smile as we descended the courthouse steps together, heading toward a future none of us had anticipated but all of us had helped create. 6 months after Nathan's sentencing, I stood confidently at a podium in a packed conference room at the FBI's Financial Crimes Division in Boston. The presentation behind me detailed what had become officially known as the Reed case, though neither of those names belonged to us anymore. I'd reclaimed my maiden name, Bennett, wanting no lingering connection to any of Nathan's carefully crafted identities. The contemporary con artist rarely uses physical weapons, I explained to the attentive room of federal agents, analysts, and new recruits. Instead, they weaponize trust, emotional manipulation, and digital technology. But no matter how sophisticated their schemes become, they invariably leave financial traces. The key is knowing precisely where and how to look for those patterns. I clicked to the next slide showing a complex network diagram of interconnected fraud cases we'd identified. The specialized program I'd helped develop with the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit was already yielding significant results. 3 major romance scam operations had been dismantled in the past month alone, resulting in the recovery of millions in stolen assets and the arrest of over a dozen perpetrators. Meredith had become an invaluable consultant to our team, her first-hand experience providing crucial insights into how these predators selected and groomed their targets. Financial predators count on shame keeping their victims silent, I continued, making eye contact with the diverse group of professionals hanging on every word. By creating a system where victims can safely come forward without judgment, we've removed their most powerful protection, secrecy. After the presentation concluded to enthusiastic applause, I checked my phone to find a message from Gabriella. Another victim of Nathan's had been located in Vancouver, a small business owner who, unlike the rest of us, had lost absolutely everything: her home, her retirement savings, her family business of 20 years. But this time, we could offer more than sympathy. The forensic team had finally decrypted Nathan's hidden files, revealing offshore accounts scattered across 3 continents. We can recover at least 60% of what she lost, Gabriella's message concluded. Call me when you're done. As I gathered my materials, I found myself reflecting on that cold Sunday morning when I'd awakened to find Nathan's calculated farewell text, how he'd tried to devastate me with those carefully crafted cruel words designed to make me blame myself. Instead, his attempts to destroy me had inadvertently given me something powerful: the opportunity and platform to help others fight back against financial predators like him. That evening, I relaxed on the balcony of my new waterfront apartment overlooking Boston Harbor, Rufus contentedly sleeping at my feet. The spring breeze carried the scent of salt water as I sipped a glass of wine, appreciating the profound irony of my situation. Nathan had dedicated his life to exploiting strong, successful women, systematically stripping them of their assets and self-confidence. Yet in the end, he'd unintentionally created something far more powerful than his schemes, a nationwide network of survivors transformed into advocates, all committed to dismantling the systems that enabled men like him to operate. My phone lit up with a group message from our survivor network. Another case had just resulted in a conviction in Florida. Another predator stopped. Another victory. I smiled, watching the harbor lights twinkle in the gathering dusk. Sometimes the most satisfying form of justice isn't just surviving, it's emerging stronger, more purposeful, and helping others do the same. In trying to diminish me, Nathan had inadvertently set me on the path to my most meaningful work. That realization brought a sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. My name is Elaine Thompson and I am 54 years old. Currently, I live with my husband Robert, who is 4 years older than me, and our 14-year-old son James. We are a family of 3. Today, I am attending a university graduation ceremony with my son. Though my husband's niece is graduating, Robert couldn't join us immediately due to an emergency at the hospital where he serves as director. The ceremony is being held at a prestigious Ivy League campus, and I find myself captivated by its grandeur while feeling a complex mixture of emotions. As an educator myself, I was invited to attend officially, but watching these young graduates in their caps and gowns stirs something deep within me, memories of opportunities denied and dreams deferred. Mom, isn't this amazing? James whispers beside me, his eyes wide with wonder as he takes in the historic buildings and manicured grounds. Do you think I could study here someday? I squeeze his hand gently. With your dedication and intelligence? Absolutely. While James watches the proceedings with fascination, I can't help reflecting on how different his educational journey has been from mine. The freedom to dream, the encouragement to reach higher, these are gifts I never received at his age but have made sure to give him. After the ceremony concludes, we make our way to the reception area. The space is filled with proud families, excited graduates, and faculty members in academic regalia. I'm searching for Robert's niece to offer congratulations when I hear an unpleasant voice behind me. Oh, look at that defective item. Why are you here? The words hit me like a physical blow, familiar in their cruelty even after all these years. Mom, what does she mean by that? James looks confused and concerned. It's true, why is there a defective item here? We didn't invite them, did we? Another voice joins in, deliberately loud enough for me to hear. I feel as if disdainful words are being exchanged around me, and they seem to be talking loudly on purpose. This is not just gossip, it is overtly offensive. However, no one addresses me directly. I don't want to associate with such rude people, especially not with my son present, so I quickly guide James away from the area. Wait, you ugly thing. You can hear me, can't you? I feel someone call out from behind, but I ignore it. My name is not you ugly thing. As I walked firmly across the reception hall, the sound of hurried footsteps behind me startles me. They should have given up since I was ignoring them. Why would they embarrass themselves with such behavior at a dignified event like this? While I was pondering this, someone suddenly grabs my arm. It appears that they had run after me. The grip on my arm is so tight that it's painful. Stop. Wait a minute. I'm telling you to stop. The woman shouts breathlessly. I turn around, placing myself between this person and James, and firmly shake off her arm. She seems not to expect such a reaction and staggers back with an exaggerated outcry. I feel that her frail behavior is pointless and theatrical. Karen, are you okay? Why is this person being so violent? Another woman rushes over, supporting the first woman while giving me a stern look. Ignorance really is a problem. What's going on? Who might you be? I ask calmly, though my heart is pounding. Huh? Who might I be? Have you forgotten about me? The woman named Karen looks incredulous. Yes, it seems you are very self-centered and rude, the older woman adds. Have we met before? As I ask this, Karen raises her eyebrows in astonishment. What are you talking about? Do you think you have the right to act like this? You with just a high school diploma. Her words are dripping with contempt. If you say you've forgotten, I'll refresh your memory. I'm your sister Karen. Hearing the name must jog your unfortunate mind, right? And this is our mother. Can you really say you've forgotten your own mother? Ah, yes, I reply softly. Maybe there were people by those names in my past. I shake my head slightly. It's a waste of time to engage in serious dialogue with these people, especially with James watching. Dissatisfied with my response, the two women show even more anger. At that moment, two men hurry over. What's going on here? We could hear voices all the way across the room, one of them says. Karen, are you done preparing? Oh, you're still in your regular clothes. You better hurry and change, the other man, who appears to be older, addresses my sister. Dad. Mark. This suspicious person has sneaked into our celebration. Please remove her immediately. Karen points at me while shouting. I can't help but think that they were never taught that it's not polite to point at people. The reactions of the two men who see me are completely different. The man called Dad widens his eyes and then clearly shows a displeased expression. The man known as Mark freezes with a look of shock, and his face gradually pales. What's going on? Why is Elaine here? Mark asks, his voice unsteady. To see her face on such a happy day. Exactly. She must have slipped in by mistake. It's unbearable. Hey, call security quickly. Karen demands. Wait a minute. What are you saying? Be careful with your words about this person. While my father agrees with Karen, Mark speaks up with a pale face. Seeing this, I murmur quietly to James, they really know nothing about real family, do they? My remark goes unnoticed by those around me, but James squeezes my hand in solidarity. Mom. There you are. Sorry I'm late. A new voice joins our uncomfortable gathering. It's Robert, my husband, who has finally arrived after handling his emergency at the hospital. All eyes turn to Robert, who seems slightly surprised by the tension in the air. Sorry, I was on my way to congratulate Melissa, but got tangled up with some unexpected people. I say this with a wry smile and move closer to Robert. James follows, clearly relieved by his father's arrival. Robert looks around and murmurs briefly, "Ah." He seems to grasp the situation immediately. His insight is indeed remarkable after all our years together. Karen had been momentarily captivated by the sudden appearance of Robert, but when I stand next to him with James, her expression changes drastically, and she glares at me sharply. My parents still do not fully understand the situation and show confused expressions. Mark is visibly flustered. He is the first to speak. Dr. Thompson, I apologize. My wife said something inappropriate. I really am sorry to your wife, too. His tone is deferential, recognizing Robert's professional standing. Come on, Karen, apologize too. Why should I apologize? They are the ones who should be apologizing. Karen points at me again as she speaks. This disrespectful person intruded on our daughter's important graduation. I don't know how this happened, but this woman is a disgrace to our family. We should have cut ties with her long ago and never met again. Wait, family? Robert looks surprised and glances back and forth between Karen and me, understanding dawning on his face. Just then, my parents intervene. Oh dear, Mark, I'm truly sorry. We have a problematic eldest daughter. My mother's voice is sickeningly sweet. She's such an embarrassing subject that it's awkward even to mention her, and we've managed to hide this fact until now. In truth, we kicked her out of the house over 9 years ago, my father adds. How did she even find out about our celebration? What does she intend to do by coming here uninvited? Surely she isn't planning to ruin the day, is she? Actually, Mark, this girl is stupid, my mother continues, as if I weren't standing right there. She only graduated high school and couldn't attend university. After graduating, she just loitered around doing part-time jobs, staying at home and being a real nuisance. She was like a parasite. She should be grateful we provided for her through high school. Why did she sneak into the celebration? I had received such harsh treatment in the past, yet I had long severed ties with this family and effortlessly brushed off all their insults. These people were in fact my family, at least that's what the family registry stated. However, my parents doted on my sister who is 6 years younger than me and had neglected me from the time I began to develop my own identity. My father's family has been producing doctors for generations, and our home was connected to his clinic. My mother worked as a nurse in the family-run clinic. To an outsider, our family might have appeared to live without any want. However, the reality was a home filled with toxicity and emotional abuse. I remember trying hard to earn my parents' love when I was young, but I gave up all expectations from my family because the reason for favoring my sister was incomprehensible to me. She was deemed attractive and I was not. Fortunately, although it might sound odd to evaluate myself, I was intelligent and excelled academically. Therefore, I focused on my studies with the goal of leaving home as soon as possible. During that time, I felt like I was acting the role of the defective elder sister in the family. Listen, I won't allow you to go to university, my father had told me during my senior year of high school. You are inherently a defect. There's no way you could succeed in higher education. Start working immediately after graduation, become independent, and contribute financially to the house. It's thanks to us that someone as unattractive as you could grow up at all. You owe us a debt of gratitude. That's right, my mother had added. You never seem grateful. As for college expenses, we might consider it for Karen, but there's not a single cent available for you. You will spend your life serving us. Even if you do get a job, it won't be anything significant. By the way, this conversation was recorded at the time and has been preserved to this day. During my high school years, I recorded almost all of the verbal abuse and irrational behavior from my family. My sister Karen, seeing the consistent behavior of our parents, also scorned me and always tried to assert her dominance. I will become a doctor and take over Dad's job in the future, she would boast. I'll work hard enough for both of us since my big sister can't. Oh, that's so nice to hear, my father would beam. Yes, learn from her failures and do your best, my mother would add. Don't worry, Karen, you can do it. Yes, we will support you fully, unlike your sister. Karen, you are truly our pride. They would have these kinds of conversations blatantly in front of me. It was like something out of a cruel play where I was forced to be both audience and unwilling participant. After graduating high school, I worked various part-time jobs for about 3 years. I still lived at home, technically. They said I was a nuisance, but they wouldn't allow me to leave on my own terms because they wanted to use me as it suited them, as free household labor and a caretaker for my aging grandparents. However, I had secretly begun taking night classes and saving money, eventually renting a small apartment without their knowledge. Although my family continuously threatened, "We won't forgive you if you do this or we won't allow you if you don't do that," after becoming an adult, I realized I didn't need their permission anymore. Of course, there were complications like needing a guarantor for certain things, but my mother's sister, Helen, who had always shown me kindness, helped me with these practical matters. By the way, I intentionally reported less income from my part-time jobs so the amount of money demanded by my family was minimal. Additionally, I began investing small amounts and gradually increased my savings. I was determined to create a different future for myself than the one they had planned. When Karen was preparing for her high school entrance exams, she used the convenient excuse that she couldn't concentrate with me around, and I was kicked out of the house. My parents seemed to assume I would eventually return, begging for forgiveness and support, but for me, it was a perfect opportunity to fully embrace my independence. It must have been a surprise for them that I, who was belittled as incapable of doing anything on my own, didn't return. However, that soon became irrelevant to them. As far as my parents were concerned, having Karen was enough. Their golden child would fulfill all their dreams. 9 years have passed since then. While lost in these thoughts, I become aware again of the escalating argument between Karen and Mark. In fact, today Karen had apparently been telling everyone it was her daughter's graduation, though she has no daughter. Mark seems increasingly agitated by this deception. Why are you taking her side? I've been saying all along that she's suspicious. Just her being here spoils the mood. Kick her out quickly. Karen's voice has risen to a near shriek. Look, I've told you several times that Dr. Thompson was invited to this ceremony officially. She's a respected educator and was asked to be here by the university, Mark explains, clearly exasperated. They've already checked in as official guests. So apologize for what you said earlier. It's worrying that such arguments are happening during what should be a celebration. James presses closer to me, discomfort evident on his face. At that moment, my father suddenly says with a surprised look, "Wait, isn't he the director of Thompson Regional Hospital?" My mother also expresses surprise. Thompson Regional? The renowned hospital? The director himself? The hospital director? Karen echoes their surprise, her voice tinged with disbelief. Amid these stares, Robert introduces himself with professional courtesy. Nice to meet you. I'm Robert Thompson, this is my wife Elaine, and our son James. He greets them with a polite smile, though I can see the tension in his eyes. Robert's parents are distinguished doctors who have managed the hospital for many years. Robert himself took over as director 10 years ago and has transformed it into one of the region's leading medical facilities, Mark explains, almost reverently. Hearing this, my parents' eyes widen in amazement. Suddenly, Karen's husband interjects with forced enthusiasm. It's unbelievable, but to think that the wife of Dr. Thompson is my wife's sister. Can such a coincidence even be possible? That means we are relatives now. He says this, unable to hide his surprise and awkward calculation. Dr. Wells, I apologize for any confusion, I interject calmly, cutting off his remarks. My son was actually your patient briefly last year for his asthma assessment. That's the extent of our connection. Mark Wells is an internist and works at a university-affiliated hospital. James had experienced some breathing difficulties, and we had taken him for a consultation, not realizing the doctor was connected to my estranged family. How is James feeling now? From what I diagnosed, his condition should improve with the treatment plan I suggested. Is he responding well? Daniel asks with professional interest. Actually, we've decided to see another specialist for ongoing care, I reply evenly. It seemed more appropriate given the circumstances. It's clear that Mark is surprised by my response. It seemed that he was attempting to treat James as a special case, perhaps to establish a professional connection with Robert, but I was uncomfortable with the idea of my child being used in such a calculated way. Therefore, I gently declined his offer with a smile. Suddenly, a mocking laugh echoes through the air. Why are you behaving like that? Karen sneers. Are you trying to compensate for being just a high school graduate by marrying a doctor? Are you stupid? Marrying the director of a large hospital doesn't elevate your own worth. Your education remains the same, and your thinking is too shallow. You really have a child? Poor kid, having you for a mother. Karen. Please stop. Mark implores. We're family. Why do you keep saying such things? However, my sister glares at his words. She seems unshakable in her righteousness, her face contorted with resentment. Suddenly Robert speaks to me quietly. Elaine, are they really your family? He asks with concern, his hand protectively on James's shoulder. No, I reply firmly. These people can no longer be called family. A real family wouldn't suddenly scold you for no reason, refuse to feed you just because you spilled a little food, or give you second-hand clothes found in a dumpster while laughing as they compare them to the high-end brands they give to my sister. I continue, my voice steady. They wouldn't throw away my study materials claiming you're too stupid to need them or soak my textbooks with water to make them unusable. So no, they are not my family anymore. Robert nods, adding, true. A real family wouldn't strip you naked in the winter cold for not lending a book to your sister, or lock you in a hot shed in the summer. His knowledge of my past pains comes from years of late-night conversations as I gradually shared my history with him. They wouldn't silently sell your belongings or tell you directly that you're expected to labor for a lifetime, I say. People in our town noticed the clinic's unfair treatment of the siblings, suspecting abuse. They don't want to take their children there anymore. It's actually surprising that no one reported it when we were children. Now, despite their business suffering, they failed to realize that they are the cause of it, Robert concludes. This shows just how severe the situation truly was. During our calm exchange, when the cruel acts of my past were revealed, Mark looks shocked. My parents are equally stunned to find out I know their clinic is struggling financially. Since I had left home, this information was unearthed by Robert's family, who deeply sympathized with the hardships I endured and felt even more outraged than I did. Robert also harbored similar feelings, and they had been monitoring my parents' clinic, perhaps out of concern for other potential victims. Stop it. Stop lying. We didn't do any of that. It's your fault for being a failure. Karen vehemently protests, her face flushing with anger. Mark, don't believe a word she says. I think to myself that none of this would have happened if she had simply ignored me and walked away earlier. The graduation celebration would have continued peacefully. No, but actually it's you who are lying, Mark retorts, surprising everyone with his firmness. Me? Lying about what? Karen responds in disbelief, her voice rising. That Mrs. Thompson only graduated high school, Mark says, his gaze steady. She holds not just a college degree, but a master's in education. She's the principal of Windsor Academy and has developed award-winning programs for at-risk youth. Principal? Karen exclaims in shock, staring at me as if seeing something unbelievable. My parents are equally astounded, their expressions frozen in disbelief. Stop lying. She's just a high school graduate. My mother insists, her voice shrill. Are you saying she went to college behind our backs? Without us knowing? Yes, I did attend college, I respond calmly. I was already an adult, and I had no obligation to report my educational pursuits to strangers who are not my family. What are you saying? How can you speak to your parents like that? We didn't give you permission to go to college. My father shouts, his face reddening with indignation. Why would I need your permission? I counter evenly, watching them struggle to maintain their composure. I was 22 years old. They cannot hide their anger as I continue. After high school, I worked various jobs and saved money. I attended night classes while caring for Grandma and Grandpa, though you never noticed. I used those funds to eventually pay for college tuition. There was still so much I wanted to learn and pursue. I take a breath, feeling a strange sense of calm as I finally speak my truth to them directly. Living away from home, I enjoyed my freedom and discovered I was capable of anything. While in college, I started working in educational outreach programs. That's also when I met my husband. Reflecting on this fills me with deep gratitude for the path my life has taken. Meanwhile, Karen is mumbling something, her face pale with shock. I can't believe it. I always thought she was the incapable and inept sister who couldn't do anything by herself, that she would die somewhere after being expelled. Her voice trails off as she processes this new reality. Despite all that, she graduated from college, got a master's degree, became a school principal, and married a hospital director. Why? I thought I would be the happy one. Why is she more successful than me? Why does she look happy? Why? Why indeed? I respond thoughtfully. Maybe it's because despite being treated unfairly by our family, I never gave up and kept working hard. Maybe luck played a small role as well. After saying this, I look back at my sister firmly and then reveal something I'd learned years ago. By the way, I heard you dropped out of high school. Is that true? This revelation completely shocks everyone around, including my former parents and Mark. What? What are you suddenly talking about? Who dropped out of high school? Karen counters, though I admire her bravery in attempting to deny it. I heard from Aunt Helen, who has always been kind to me, that after I left home, you overestimated your capabilities. You thought you could easily get into any prestigious school without studying. You went into the exam unprepared and ended up writing almost nothing, resulting in the expected failure. As I speak, Mark's expression grows increasingly stern, while my parents and sister turn ever paler. After that, you became unruly at home and remained in a reclusive state for a long time. You only returned to society recently when our parents introduced Mark as a suitable marriage partner for you. Isn't that right? What baseless things are you saying? Karen protests, trembling. But I continue calmly. Actually, the claim that you work in hospital administration is also false, isn't it? In reality, you don't have the qualifications, and you're only handling basic clerical tasks, not entrusted with any specialist duties. It's good that at least minimum professional ethics are being maintained. Stop it. Your words are filled with lies. All of it is false. She cries out, her voice breaking. Maybe so. What I heard was just a rumor after all. Whether you believe it or not is up to you, I respond with a slight shrug. At that, Karen suddenly turns to Mark, studying his expression intently. On his face are doubt, confusion, and clear disappointment. Karen, you previously told me that you graduated from Westfield Women's University, held qualifications in healthcare administration, and were supporting your family's hospital, Mark says, his voice controlled but tight with anger. Are you saying all that was a lie? Falsifying academic credentials to deceive people is clearly fraudulent. Have you deceived me? No, Mark. Don't just take her word for it. You're my husband, you should trust me. Karen pleads, reaching for his arm. Then please name even one professor from the university you claim to have graduated from. He challenges her directly. Clearly flustered, Karen struggles to respond. That's not relevant right now. Is it really not? Mark persists. Let's call Professor Lindbergh from the Department of Health Administration you claim to have attended. He's also a family friend of my parents and has a very close relationship with our family. As he declares this, Mark calmly picks up his smartphone, ready to make the call that would unravel the truth once and for all. Please stop. That's not necessary, Mark. If you trust me, that's enough. Karen's voice rises in panic. Suddenly, Karen snatches the smartphone from Mark's hand and forcefully slams it onto the marble floor of the reception hall. There's no need to check. Just believe me. Driven by anger and fear, Karen then mercilessly stomps on the phone multiple times with her heel, completely destroying it. Her expression at that moment is distorted with rage, her carefully maintained composure shattered completely. This scene greatly shocks Mark and the other guests, who are stunned by her sudden violent outburst. My parents try to calm Karen down, but her anger seems not easily subdued. The commotion catches the attention of other attendees and the university staff, who gather around with concerned looks. The reception momentarily descends into chaos. Despite being there, I feel as if it were happening to someone else, a strange detachment that comes with years of emotional separation. I can no longer feel any familial connection with my sister or parents. For me, my family now consists only of my husband, my son, and the life we've built together. Shall we go home? I suggest to Robert and James. I think we've done our duty here by attending the ceremony. Robert looks a bit surprised and asks, "Are we leaving already, Elaine?" I reply with a calm smile, "It's okay. Let's go home. Oh, and let's stop by that bakery near campus on the way back. I heard they have an excellent chocolate cake that James has been wanting to try." "Hey, that sounds like a good idea," Robert agrees, seamlessly following my lead. He understands my need to exit this toxic situation. James nods enthusiastically. I saw it when we arrived. The display looked amazing. We leave the venue with light conversation about desserts and weekend plans, as if the ugly confrontation had never happened. As we walk away, I feel a weight lifting from my shoulders, one I hadn't even realized I was still carrying after all these years. Epilogue. Later, I heard that Mark became involved in a lawsuit for making false diagnoses and charging excessive medical fees to patients. Following this scandal, my former parents, finding themselves in dire financial straits as their clinic continued to decline, sought my support. However, they did not know my current contact information and ultimately showed up at the hospital where Robert works. "So she's the daughter-in-law of the hospital director?" "She is our daughter. Please let us see her right away," they reportedly told the receptionist. "Contacting Dr. Thompson should solve this problem instantly. We are really in trouble, and we need her to repay the kindness we raised her with. We are family, so it's only natural to seek help." "That's right," my mother had added. "Honestly, I never thought she would be so useful, but it pays to raise children, doesn't it? I never imagined she would find a more suitable partner than Karen. We are now in-laws with the hospital director, so it's natural for us to seek support." They proclaimed this loudly at the reception desk, causing quite a stir among the staff. However, it was not Robert or I who responded, but rather, coincidentally, my parents-in-law who were visiting the hospital that day. They, with stern looks, firmly asked my parents, "What business do you have with our daughter-in-law?" My former parents were unsettled by this response, literally froze on the spot, and quickly left the scene. They tried to contact us several times afterward through various channels, but Robert and I agreed that maintaining distance was healthiest for our family, especially for James. Because they did not focus on resolving their own business issues and continued to seek external bailouts, their clinic eventually had to close. When I received news of the closure, I felt no particular emotion, neither satisfaction nor sorrow. Instead, I felt a sense of completion, as if a chapter of a book had finally ended. I thought it was one of the most clarifying moments in my journey to true independence. Later, I heard that Karen and Mark had gotten divorced. It was astonishing that their marriage had lasted even a few months. The lawsuit Mark was involved in and his subsequent struggle to rebuild his professional reputation probably dealt the final blow to their already fragile relationship. Karen seemed determined to surpass what she perceived as my happiness and find greater joy and status, but she continued to make poor choices in the process. As her first step after the divorce, she secretly started having an affair with a much older married doctor, hoping to find a more advantageous position for herself. However, this affair soon came to light and escalated into a significant issue when the doctor's wife demanded compensation. Desperate, Karen sought help from our parents to resolve the situation, but they quickly disowned her, labeling her a disgrace to the family, using the same words they had once used against me. The irony wasn't lost on me, though I took no pleasure in her downfall. I have no certain information about what happened to Karen afterward, but according to Aunt Helen, Karen's life continued to spiral. Having never completed high school and lacking practical skills, she struggled to find stable employment. Living a life increasingly isolated from mainstream society, she eventually developed health issues related to excessive cosmetic procedures and an addiction to creating a false reality on social media. Meanwhile, as retirement approached, my former parents struggled to find positions as doctors or nurses, but it seems no hospital would accept them due to their long-standing poor reputation in the medical community. This was likely a consequence of years of substandard practice and mistreatment of both patients and staff. Now they are no more than people from my past, and I no longer devote time to thinking about them. My energy is focused on the present and future, my work as an educator, my family, and particularly the students who need additional support to overcome their own challenges. Regarding James, after comprehensive examinations at Roberts Hospital, his asthma has significantly improved with proper medication and management. He's thriving academically and has recently expressed interest in studying medicine like his father, though I've assured him that whatever path he chooses, we'll support him completely. As I finish writing this account of my journey, I realize it might serve a greater purpose than merely documenting my past. Perhaps sharing these experiences could help others who find themselves in similar situations to know they're not alone, that escape is possible, and that creating a life of meaning and joy after abuse is not just a dream but an achievable reality. I will continue to do everything I can to protect my family and to extend that protection to the vulnerable students who come through the doors of my school. The cycle of abuse can be broken, and education, formal or self-taught, remains one of our most powerful tools for transformation.